Well, here's a lovely restoration of a 1930s Ford motor triplane, and it's going to be in the Dutch KLM colors. And there's the real thing. It's a beauty. And here's the really real thing. Pretty smashed up, and it's being sandblasted to get the old paint off. But she's in really rough shape. So the wheels are all crumbly, and that's normal for these wheels from the 1930s. The wing is bent, the tail is bent, and pieces of it are missing. The fuselage is crushed in. We're missing a propeller. Later we'll break a propeller. That'll be really nice. The landing gear here is all bent, and there's almost nothing on this airplane that isn't broken or cracked or bent, which is exactly what I like. So 1930s, 1940s Tootsietoys that are busted up and need some TLC. So some pliers to straighten out the tail. We'll spend way too much time fixing this tail, and it will be real amateur hour. Here we're trying to get the rust off of the landing gear, or the axle for the landing gear. And I was able to pretty much get that straight, so I got to reuse it. See the wheels there in the background. Here we go. We're going to pull out these things that are keeping the propellers on, and it's just a little nail. So there, somewhere in 1930, somebody just pounded that into this little toy, and they're a little bit bent, so they got to be straightened out. But it's just a typical little, like a little wood nail. Ah! Yes, that was bad. That was bad. So where are you going to find a propeller like this? Where are you going to find that online? And luckily there are some real nerds out there that if you can look hard enough, you can find it. So we've got to take this thing apart, and it doesn't really like coming apart. Happily been this way since the 1930s, so moving in on 100 years, certainly 90 years. Tootsietoy. And this whole setup here in the middle that holds the wings and the fuselage all together. As I'm pulling that apart, we're going to find out that that too has been cracked. Yeah. Cracked, and the crack is going to grow, and we're going to have to fix that a couple of times. So here we go again with the steel wool. I'm not exactly sure I was using the right brush here on this Dremel, but it did enough of what I wanted it to do. But steel wool is always the real go-to cleaning up these little toys. So we're going to use some metal putty to fix this. And that's, in the end, that's not really going to work, so it's going to need some kind of epoxy on there. But this is just fiddly stuff. It's got to be right. It was a little bit bent, so it's got to be bent just right, and you don't want to crack it again. And of course, it's the center of the airplane. It's got to hold the whole thing together. And then I tried to do this for the propeller, and that did work. So I didn't end up using it in the end, but I've got it as a backup. So here I go, just eyeballing the tail fins for this. I'm going to attempt it here in one way, but I've got a piece of plastic that's just a little too small. So, poorly started. It's not going to work. Nope, that's not going to work. So we'll get another piece. This is really handy stuff, these plastic sheets. You can buy at any model shop. We get everything taped down. And that looks like a real engineer's done it, huh? A real aircraft engineer has gotten hold of this. And we'll just eyeball what's straight, and yeah, you know, it's good enough for what we're doing. And then it's just a process of cutting it out. Making sure we got kind of the same thing on both sides. And I found out pretty quickly that that's not just going to hang there itself, so we're going to have to put some kind of support under it. And so I have an over-engineered solution here. It's a piece of wire. And I put a big thing through there. If they actually did this to scale on the real plane, this thing would have fallen out of the sky tail first, as big as this is. So I'm just going to bend it in a V shape so that it supports the tail fins. And always handy to have this little anvil. I'm so happy with it. It was bought as a joke, but it's been a really helpful implement. And so we'll get the supports just where we need them. Get that ready for those little plastic tail fins I'm going to put on there. And set it with some metal putty. And there it's there, it's ready to go. Looks okay. There's just a little stub of residue there, and I'm going to put the tail fins on top of that little stub of residue. I couldn't put it actually on there, but you don't see it, and hope it doesn't damage the aerodynamics. So here we go. We're going to just putting some epoxy on there, gluing it down, looking if it's all straight. Yeah, it looks okay. And then it's just let the thing dry. Back to the steel wool, and we got this bent wing. It's still a little bit bent, but you only want to go so far in these. So spend some time trying to straighten it out, and it looks okay. It looks okay now. Get these wheels painted. And there's the repaired propeller. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's all right. If I have another little airplane like this and need one of these, I'll use it for sure. But I've used the new ones that I ordered. But some kind of a titanium silver, maybe call it gunmetal silver coat on there on the wing. And the same for the wheels. And now we're back to our repaired, I don't know what you call this, carriage or support, middle support here with the engines. I'm trying to get that back into shape without cracking the metal putty that we did, and that I did it anyway. So we've got to paint it. I'm painting in it, and a little bit different than you saw in the opening airplane. I'm going to make most of the airplane blue instead of silver. So parts are going to be silver, but it's mostly KLM blue, just to sort of emphasize that. And it looks like I popped off one of the tails, so we have to redo that. But things are starting to go. We've got the fuselage, we got that painted. Now we've got to tape off the part we painted and get that KLM blue on there. And it is really fiddly. It's really a fiddly thing, but it's worth it, and it doesn't take so long. These little strips here, Tamiya modeling tape, and they work really well. The rest there is a yellow painter's tape, just from your hardware store. And manufacturing these things, this tail and getting these things. I mean, somebody like Paul Restorer, I suggest you look at his page. He does amazing stuff, and he casts his own things and makes his own stuff. And I have to go online and go begging a little bit. But that's a whole different level. And so I think I'll just keep looking for nerds that make parts rather than try to make them myself. So we slather it here in some KLM blue. And of course I've stuffed it with toilet paper so that as the blue spray paint comes through those little windows, it won't coat the inside and make it all look sort of, oversprayed and that kind of thing. And as we're lifting it up here, it's really starting to look nice. A couple little tiny little mistakes that I was able to correct a little bit later. And now here comes that middle setup, and I realize that actually the body has been crimped, the body has been crushed. So now I've got to make that a little bit wider without damaging anything. That's the real trick. I got some wood here and just started to pry, just gently pry a little bit, a tenth of a millimeter. At some point, it'll fit. And these tabs here, this is what holds the wing onto that setup there. And I broke it again. Yep. There it is. Broken again. So I'm going to repair it in the end with some epoxy on there. But luckily it's starting to come together. kind of feel the end here. So when taking the paint off here, and I'm going to put all of these things kind of on top of each other. I'm going to put that middle section there on, and then I'm going to put epoxy, and then put the wing on top of that, and hope that all that epoxy dries and just, you know, solidifies the whole thing, which is a bit of overkill. I don't want to mess with it anymore. There we go. So that's going to cook on there a little while. Give another coat here to the wheels. And it was just slightly off, if you could see it there, just slightly off. But it's all covered by the wing, so in the end you won't see it. So what do? I don't undo it and try to fix it again and make it really right. No. I'm just gonna clip it off and grind it off. But I don't think the wing would have gone on there very well. So we've got the wheels back on. We're going to put just a little bit of metal stuff here on the end, that metal putty, so that the wheel won't pop off. Put some metal putty here, jam the wing onto it. Metal putty there on the end of the axle, so that and there we go. Now it's all clamped together, and we're going to put the propellers back on, but I only have two, so I got to find another one.
Many months later.
And it was about 3 months, and I got two new ones, so I'm going to go ahead and use both the new ones, and the one I repaired I'm going to have as a spare. And now they're ready to be inserted on there with the little nails. And that all went really well. I'm not hitting that as hard as it looked like with that hammer. Just gentle tapping. So we're going to put some decals here, and I didn't have decals, and I don't make my own, so I found some old decals that I thought would work, and we're going to put some of this stuff on there that kind of softens up the paint and makes the decals stick better and look better. So I have taken these decals from some old model that maybe I did years ago, and they'll do the trick. So I'm putting it on the top here. I'm trying to put a little Dutch flag right there, but of course it didn't really work. So I put it on the undercarriage there, and I tried to put one there. And as I was doing it, it wasn't really cooperating, but in the end it cooperated. And then here I put some numbers on the side. This is from another fighter airplane or something like that. It kind of gives you the feeling of what was supposed to be there. We're getting a little closer with our KLM plane, so you got it on the top and the bottom, the CVD. I have no idea what that means. Just get them in place, and then there you go. I mean, it's pretty much done there. Looking good. You got a little Dutch flag under there on the undercarriage, or that middle bit here just behind the engines. You got the Dutch flag, and got the right tires, those new tires on there. Gosh, that looks really good. And you know, it's back to its former glory, ready to be played with. Wouldn't that be nice? So luckily I had this metal kind of poster behind there of an old Ford triplane going to Netherlands, India. There you've got it. And thank you so very much for watching.